Hello, day 2 of reading Tools of Titan by Tim Ferriss. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger was born in Thal, Austria in 1947 and by the age of 20 dominated the sports of competitive bodybuilding, becoming the youngest person ever to win the Mr. Universe title with his sights set on Hollywood. He immigrated to America in 1968 and went on to win five Mr. five Mr. Universe title and seven Mr. Olympia title before retiring from competitive bodybuilding to dedicate himself to acting. Schwarzenegger, who worked under a pseudonym Arnold Strong in his first feature, had his big break in 1982 with Conan the Barbarian. Today, this film has grossed more than 3 billion worldwide. He gratefully served the people of California as the state's 38th governor for 2003 to from 2003 to 2010. Notably, Schwarzenegger made California a world leader in renewable energy, combating climate change with Global Warming Solution Act of 2006, became the first governor in decades to invest or rebuilding California's critical infrastructure with his strategic growth plan and instituted dynamic political reform that stopped the century old practice of gerrymandering by creating an independent redistricting commission and brought political leaders closer to center by creating an open primary system. Schwarzenegger acts as chairman of the After School All Stars, a, no- a nationwide after school program, and he continues his policy work through the USC Schwarzenegger Institute of State and Global Policy, which seeks to advise his vision of post partnership, where leaders put people over political parties and work together to find the best ideas and solutions to benefit the people they serve. Behind the scene, Arnold is a huge chess fan and plays daily. He rotates through different partners and keep annual scorecards. By the end of a year, some of them have tallies in the thousands of games. One of his favorite documentaries is Brooklyn Castle, a film about chess in inner city school. When I first met Arnold and we sat down at his kitchen table, I didn't know how to address him and nervously asked. He replied, "Well, you can address me any way you want. You can call me Governor Sneasel, Arnold, anything. But I think Arnold will be right." I used a Zoom S6 recorder for primary audio, but I had a backup recorder, Zoom S4n, for our first interview. Arnold asked, "What is this for?" To which I replied, "Backup in case the primary fails." He tapped his head and looked at his team seated around the room. "Having a backup audio makes a good impression." Carl Fussman got the same response from Richard Branson, as no busy person wants to take 1 to 3 hours for an interview that never gets published. I wasn't there to compete, I was there to win. I brought up a photo of Arnold's at age 9 at age 19. I brought up a photo of Arnold at age 19, just before he won his big competition, Junior Mr. Junior Mr. Europe. I asked, "Your face was so confident compared to every other competitor. Where did that confidence come from?" He replied, "My confidence comes from my Vision. I'm a big believer that if you have a very clear vision of where you want to go, then the rest of it is much easier because you always know why you are training 5 hours a day. You always know why you are pushing and going through the pain barrier, and why you have to eat more, and why you have to struggle more, and why you have to be more disciplined. I felt that I couldn't win, and that was what I was there for. I wasn't there to compete, I was there to win. European bricklaying. In 1971, Arnold started a bricklaying company with his best friend Franco Colombo, an Italian powerlifting, boxing, and bodybuilding champion who lived in Germany. At the time, anything European was exotic and assumed to be better. The Swedish massage craze. So they put ads in the LA Times, and European bricklayers and masonry expert, marble experts, building chimney and fireplace the European style. Franco would pay the bad guy, and I Franco would play the bad guy, and I played the good guy. We would go to someone's house, and then someone would say, "Well, look at my patio. It's all cracked. Can you guys put a new patio there in there?" I would say yes, and then we would run out and get the tape measure, but it would be tape measure with centimeters. No one in those days would at all figure out anything with centimeters. We would be measuring up, and I would say 4 meters and 82 centimeters. They had no idea what we were talking about. We were writing up dollars and amount and square centimeters and square meters. Then I had to go to the guy and say it's 5,000, and the guy would be in state of shock. He would say it's 5,000. This is outrageous. I'd say, what did you expect? And he'd say, I expect like 2,000, 3,000. I say, let me talk to my guy because he's really the masonry expert, but I can beat him down for you a little bit. Let me soften the mate. Then I would go to Franco, and we would start arguing in German. This would be going on, and he was screaming back at me in Italian. Then all of a sudden he would calm down, and I would go to the guys and say, "Phew, okay, here it is. I could get him as low as 3,800. Can you get go with that?" He says, "Thank you very much. I really think that you are a great man," and blah blah blah. And all this stuff, I'd say, give us half down right now, and we'll go right away and get the cement and the bricks and everything we need for here, and we'll start working on Monday. The guys were the guy was elastic. He gave us the money, and we immediately went to the bank and cashed the check. We had to make sure the money was in the bank account, and then we went out and got the cement, the wheelbarrow, and all the stuff that we needed, and went to work. We worked like that for 2 years very successfully. The content in German is really fun to listen to. Most people, myself included, had never heard Arnold speak in his native language, let alone South insult in German. It's fantastic. Jump up to five. That's from the podcast. Did you hurt your knee? The other psychological warfare. By the time I came to America and started competing over here, I would say to my competitors something like, "Let me ask you something. Do you have any knee injuries or something like that?" Then they would look at me and say, "No, why? I have no knee injury at all. My knees feel great." "Why are you asking?" I said. "Well, because your thighs look little slimmer to me. I thought maybe you can't squat, or maybe there's some problem with leg extension." At and then I would see him for all 2 hours in the gym, always going in front of the mirror and checking out his thigh. People are vulnerable about those things. Naturally, when you have a competition, you use all this. You ask people if they were sick for a while, they look a little leaner. Or did you take any salty food lately because it looks like you have water retention and it looks like you are not as ripped as you looked a week ago or so. It throws people off in an unbelievable way. How Arnold made millions before he became a movie star. Early on, I did not rely on movie career to make a living. That was my intention because I saw over the year the people that worked out in the gym and that I met in the acting classes. They were all very vulnerable because they didn't have any money and they had to take anything that was offered to them because that was their living. I didn't want to get into that situation. I felt if I was smart with real estate and took my little money that I made by bodybuilding and in seminars and selling my courses through the mail, I could save up enough to put down money for an apartment building. I realized in the 1970s that the inflation rate was very high and therefore an investment like that is unbeatable. Building that would buy for 500,000 within a year were 800,000. I put up maybe 100,000 down, so you made 300% on your money. I quickly developed and traded up my building and bought more apartment building and office building on Main Street down in Santa Monica and so on. I benefited from a magic decade. I benefited from and I became a millionaire from my real estate investment. That was before my career took off in show business and acting, which was after Conan the Barbarian. This makes me think of one of my favorite negotiation maxims. In negotiation, he who cares the least wins. Who he could ignore a bit parts because he can cash flow from his real estate investments. On the related note, Arnold makes films or stars in them, but he doesn't invest it in them. He offset the potential vulnerability. So he off- he's offset he has offset the potential volatility of his own career by investing primarily on real estate. I have taken a similar approach to date, focusing on two ends of the spectrum: early staging, early stage tech startup, and real estate that I am happy to hold forever if needed to be. Never audition, own or create a unique niche. I never auditioned. Never I would never. I never auditioned. Never. I would never go to the I would never go out for the regular part because I was not a regular looking guy. So my idea always was everyone is going to look the same and everyone is trying to be the blonde guy in California going to Hollywood interviews and looking for somewhat authentic and cute and all this. How can I crave myself out of niche that only I have? Of course, the naysayers were there and they said, well, you know, the time has passed. It was 20 years ago. You look too big. You are too monstrous, too muscular. You will never get in the movies. That's what producers said in the beginning in Hollywood. That also, that's also that, that's also what agents and managers said. I doubt you are going to be successful. Today's idols are Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Woody Allen, all little guys Those are the sex symbols. Look at you. You weigh 250 pounds or something like that. That time is over. But I felt very strongly and had a very clear vision that the time would come that someone would appreciate that. Eventually, the very thing that the agent and the managers and the studio executives said would be a total obstacle became an asset, and my career started taking off. Arnold was able to use his biggest flaw as his biggest asset, in part because bide he could bide his time and didn't have to rush to make rent. He shared an illustrative anecdote from Terminator set. Jim Cameron said, "If we wouldn't have the Schwarzenegger, then we couldn't have done the movie because only he sounded like a machine."